Hello, Dents MC here with another Charlie's Angels summary and review. Broadcast on January 4th, 1978, Game Set Death is the 16th episode of the second season and the first for the year 1978. ABC reran the 2-hour-long Angels in Paradise season premiere in the Wednesday, December 28th slot. Multiple suspicious accidents amount to targeted attacks against the players of a professional women's tennis tour. The Angels have to investigate a sponsor, a sportscaster, as well as the players themselves when there's a $20,000 prize at stake. Chris goes undercover as a new tennis player, Sabrina as a designer, Kelly as her model, and Bosley as a club gopher. This episode features BB Besh as returning tennis pro Carrie Jo Evans, Seth Foster as former tennis player turned sportscaster Ronnie Kyle, and George Caldwell as spinner manufacturing worker Eddie Fisk. Also in this episode is Tiffany Balling as Swedish tennis champion Helga Born, Larry Block as Carrie Jo's sponsor Arlo Spinner, and Lee Terry as Miss Haley. Interesting dialogue of the episode is the misunderstanding between an overly paranoid Bosley and a random woman who was only staring at him out of attraction. Miss Haley says, "You're such a strong-looking man." And Bosley coldly says, "I am formidable, as a friend or foe." And Miss Haley says, "That's very exciting." And Bosley again coolly says, "Look, don't play games. You want something from me." This would be a pretty spicy interaction if only Bosley knew her actual intention. Interesting scene of the episode is the opening attack on one of the players after a match. It's the old locked in a steam room turned on impossibly high trick. Only this time the player manages to escape by crawling under the shower stalls to freedom. Despite her breaking down in tears afterwards, I'd say that was some pretty cool action for a background character. The title refers to the tennis term Game, Set, Match. The term means the match, or game, is over. Spot Sis Rundle. There she is. A match is shown introducing 4 female tennis players and the large prize pot, but they are being heckled by Ronnie Kyle. While he is a sportscaster now, he was a tennis player who famously lost to Carrie Jo and makes misogynistic remarks. While the players are annoyed and one even returns his challenge, it's actually a male audience member that finally gets him to shut up. There's an attack on one of the players, but she manages to escape harm. At the Townsend office, the Angels note that this was the 3rd such incident. Charlie doles out undercover roles, and soon the Angels and Bosley encounter most of the suspects at the latest tour club. Sabrina focuses on Spinner, Kelly on flaky New Age yoga practicing Helga, and Bosley on a woman who keeps staring at him. Chris tries to engage the Mexican champion, but finds her dead on the tennis court. It's put up to natural causes, which doesn't sit well with the Angels, but also doesn't bring the police. Kelly witnesses an ideological fight between Carrie Jo and Helga. Bosley confronts the overly observant Miss Haley, only to find out she's just on a lonely holiday and attracted to him. Sabrina talks to Spinner, who gallantly confronts Kyle when he grabs her, and soon shop talk turns to more personal matters. He feels like everything he's done with his father's company has turned out wrong despite his best efforts. Later, someone takes sniper shots at Carrie Jo and the Angels give chase but lose him. Chris encounters Kyle at the bar, who lies about his whereabouts at the time of the shootings, and challenges him to a match. He loses to Chris and angrily storms off, leading the Angels to wait for him to take revenge, but nothing comes of it. They then focus on the last tennis champion who hasn't been targeted yet, Helga. She's picnicking outside when a venomous snake comes out of her bag. The Angels are too late as it bites her, but they convince her through her confused state to accept their help. It's here, lurking in the bushes, we see the sniper is Eddie Fisk. He's there with his rifle, so I'm not sure why he chose a snake this time, but whatever. Fisk informs Spinner that the 3 new ladies are detectives and they need to change their deadly plans. Carrie Jo overhears the criminal conversation and confronts Spinner about him literally eliminating her competition. He reminds her that without her win, they're both in financial trouble. In the next game, Carrie Jo refuses to play and instead confesses to Sabrina and Kelly that Spinner was the mastermind and Chris is Fisk's next target. Fisk traps Chris in the locker room, but she manages to hold her own until the other angels arrive. Spinner escapes and soon a car chase ensues, but he panics and gets stuck. He tricks the angels when they arrive and soon has Sabrina as a hostage. She gets inside his head and convinces him to surrender, cementing his sympathetic bad guy character. Back at their room at the tournament club, the angels debrief with Charlie on a special phone. They report that Kyle lying about his whereabouts during the shooting was only to cover up his hangover when he should have been broadcasting. Somehow, Charlie is able to ascertain that Bosley is not only in the room, not only dressed, but also getting ready for a date. While he does explain that the sounds being made over the phone clue him in, it still comes off as the same type of omniscience he displayed in Season 1's Angels on Wheels. Naturally, he's made plans with the formerly suspicious lady, and it's a nice change of pace that this isn't completely made fun of at Bosley's expense. I'll admit, gender politics and professional sports weren't high on my 1970s childhood radar, but I know the whole Billie Jean King versus Bobby Riggs tennis match in 1973 meant something to a lot of young women at the time. Which is kind of ironic, as I've always thought of tennis as a sport dominated by female athletes, but that really wasn't the case until only the last 2 decades. It's no surprise that the misogynist was a red herring and the true culprits were just actual criminals. Charlie's Angels writers tended to fit in culturally relevant topics, but rarely had them as the bad guys. IMDb gave this a 7.2 out of 10, and I'll agree. It's an average episode with a few interesting bits, as I've noted, but no real standout moments. Good morning, Charlie.